Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at Africa
Yeah.
and more specifically, the future of Africa.
The future.
And the reason this is such a fascinating topic
Mm.
is that Africa has the largest youth population in the world,
It's incredible.
and it's only getting bigger.
And bigger.
So
Yeah.
we were able to get our hands on a really interesting set of source material for this deep dive.
Okay.
Basically, it's a collection of expert opinions and insights from this recent conference on higher education in Africa.
Interesting.
So it features academics and policymakers and really anyone in the field of higher education in Africa.
I see.
And I gotta say, it's a little bit of a roller coaster reading through this.
Oh, yeah?
You know, there's inspiring bits, there's daunting bits. It's thought-provoking.
It really is.
I
Right.
think our mission here is to really try to understand the scale of this youth bulge.
Yeah.
What it means for the future of the continent, and of course, the role of education in shaping that future.
Okay. So are we going to get into some...
Yeah, jump into it. One of the things that really struck me going through this material was just the sheer number of young people in Africa.
Oh, it's astonishing.
I mean, the youth population is projected to double to over 830 million by 2050.
It's almost inconceivable.
It's an incredible number. And to put that in some perspective,
Yeah.
that's like adding another entire European Union to Africa's population.
Wow. And all young people practically.
Almost entirely of young people. Yeah.
Practically.
I mean, that's a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. And it's an emergency, frankly.
Yeah, one of the experts in this conference,
Okay.
Toyin Falola,
Okay.
he actually used the word emergency to describe the need for job creation.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you can understand why.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at this,
The scale of the numbers.
and it's not just about the numbers.
Right.
Right. It's about the global workforce.
Exactly. By
Okay.
2050, 85% of global workforce growth is projected to come from Africa.
85%. That's almost all of it.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
What happens if things don't go well?
Oh.
What are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, if you have millions of young people who can't find work
Yeah.
and can't build a future,
Yeah.
you're looking at potential instability.
Right.
You're looking at social unrest,
Right.
mass migration as people are desperately seeking opportunities elsewhere.
Yeah.
And of course, the brain drain as talented people are leaving Africa looking for better opportunities. It's just a sobering thought.
How do we
Yeah.
get ahead of this?
Well, a lot of people at the conference were talking about education.
Oh, but not to the
That's
tradition.
not in the traditional.
What do we mean rethinking education?
Yeah. So Toyin Falola, again, he made this really interesting point.
He's saying we need to move away from the Western model of education. And he's advocating for developing knowledge systems that are suited to Africa's needs.
So basically tapping into the knowledge and traditions that are already present.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
It's about empowerment.
Empowerment.
Producing graduates who can solve the continent's challenges.
Become innovators,
Innovators and change makers,
not just followers.
not just followers.
Okay, so that's all very high level.
Yeah.
How does that actually play out?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, Ernest Arity,
Yeah.
he had some interesting thoughts.
Okay.
He was challenging this idea of building world-class universities.
So not just chasing rank things?
Not just chasing rankings, no.
Okay.
Competitiveness is important,
Mm.
but it's not the only goal.
What else?
Universities need to be connected to their local economies,
Okay.
and they need to produce graduates that are ready for the real world.
You can have the best structural engineers in the world,
Exactly.
but if there's no construction going on,
Then what's the point?
what's the point?
It's about aligning education with the needs of a developing continent.
This idea of a gap between education and industry.
Oh, yeah, that came up a lot.
People are saying that universities aren't producing graduates with the skills employers need.
Right, and Ariady, he says, hold on a second.
Okay.
It's not just the universities.
What else?
It's the broader economic landscape.
Okay.
If there's no industry growth, if there are no jobs, even the best graduates will struggle.
So it's like a chicken and the egg problem.
Exactly.
You need industries to create jobs, but you also need skilled workers to attract industries in the first place.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
But we'll keep talking about it
Well,
on the next deep dive.
sounds good. Yeah, it is a tough one for sure.
So speaking of tough ones,
Yeah.
I think this whole debate about quantity versus quality
Oh, yeah,
in higher education, it was a pretty hot topic at the conference.
absolutely.
And I I guess on the surface, building more universities sounds like a good thing.
More access to education?
More access for people, right?
Right.
But I'm sensing there's a but.
There is a but.
Okay, what's the but?
Well, some experts are saying maybe that's not always the best approach.
Okay. I'm listening.
So Ariadne, for example, he was saying just building more universities isn't enough.
Okay.
And it could actually be detrimental if it means spreading resources too thin.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So he's advocating for creating better universities.
Better universities.
Yeah.
Instead of just focusing on the number.
Exactly.
So universities that have the funding, strong faculty, high-quality standards.
Quality over quantity.
Right. But, easier said than done, I imagine.
Absolutely.
Especially with,
Especially when you consider how many young people...
the number of students...
are entering higher education every year.
That are entering higher education.
Ahmed Jinapur Abdullah, he had some really interesting data on that.
He's the director of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission.
Right.
And he said student enrollment in Ghana alone increased by 12%.
12%.
In just the 2022-23 academic year.
That's huge.
It's massive.
In 1 year.
Yeah.
That's like adding a whole new city of students.
Every year.
Every year.
Right.
How can they keep up?
That's the question, isn't it?
That is the question.
This surge in enrollment is not being matched by an increase in infrastructure or funding.
Right.
So universities are being stretched thin.
And there's a concern that they might not be able to maintain the quality.
Exactly.
So we've got this huge youth population that wants an education, but we're also facing these constraints on resources.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure. So it's a bit of a...
the balancing act.
Balancing act, yeah.
For sure.
But, I mean, amidst all these challenges, there's got to be some glimmers of hope, right?
There are definitely some glimmers of hope.
Okay, tell me about the hope.
Okay, so Kofi Niti, he's the president of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences.
Okay.
He's actually quite optimistic.
Oh, good.
He believes that building these competitive universities in Africa can help retain talent and drive development.
So instead of a brain drain, we might actually see a brain gain.
He's envisioning a scenario where the best and brightest stay in Africa.
Wow. That's a much more hopeful picture than what we were talking about before.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it makes sense.
Yeah.
If African universities can provide a world-class education, if they can foster innovation, create opportunities for young people to thrive, why would they leave?
Yeah, it creates that virtuous cycle.
Exactly.
Strained universities attract talent.
Right.
Talent drives innovation and growth.
Which strengthens the university.
Then it all just keeps building.
It does. And, Nati also pointed out that African scholars are already doing a ton of work to address these challenges. They're researching new educational models.
Developing new curricula. Collaborating to find solutions that are tailored to Africa.
So they're not just sitting around waiting for someone else to fix things.
No, they're taking ownership.
They're taking ownership.
Absolutely.
It's inspiring.
It is.
Yeah.
There's a real sense of urgency, but also a real sense of hope. It's not just about reacting. It's about shaping the future.
That's a great way to put it. So with all this talk about education, workforce development, where does the actual job creation come in?
Right. Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because you've got everything from traditional sectors like agriculture and mining, but they're being revolutionized by technology.
Okay.
And then you have these emerging industries like renewable energy, digital services, all poised for explosive growth.
So we're talking about like a future where Africa isn't just catching up to the rest of the world. It's like actually leading the way. It really is.
Yeah.
And, there's this incredible entrepreneurial spirit across the continent. There's this drive, this energy to create something new. Build businesses that solve problems and improve lives.
It's interesting, right? Because we hear a lot about the challenges facing Africa, but we don't always hear about the innovation, the resilience that's already happening.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's like we need a more balanced narrative.
Yeah.
One that acknowledges the challenges, but also celebrates the successes, the potential.
Absolutely. So if we could just step back for a second, what's the takeaway for our listener?
I think the big takeaway is that the future of Africa is being shaped right now. And it's a future that we all have a stake in.
It's not just about aid or charity.
No.
Right? It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected.
Absolutely.
And that supporting Africa's growth is in everyone's best interest.
It's not about fixing Africa.
Right.
It's about partnering with Africa. Building a more sustainable future.
More prosperous future for everyone.
For everyone.
Yeah.
So what can our listener do?
Well, I mean, there are so many amazing organizations and initiatives out there.
Yeah.
Do some research.
Yeah.
Find something that resonates with you.
Yeah.
You could support a social enterprise that's creating jobs. You could mentor a young entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Even just stay informed about the issues and share that knowledge with others.
Stay engaged.
Yeah.
Stay engaged. Every little bit helps.
It's about finding your own entry point, your own way to connect with this story and contribute to a more positive future.
And I think that's what's so hopeful about all of this.
Yeah.
It's not about waiting for someone else to take action.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play.
We all have a role to play. Well said.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the future of Africa.
My pleasure.
We hope you found it informative and inspiring.
Absolutely.
And maybe even a little bit challenging.
A little bit. And to our listener,
yeah,
remember, the future is still being written, and we all have the power to shape it.